Hey, everybody, welcome back to the GC podcast, where we dig into the people, ideas, and strategies shaping the future of co-working and flexible work. This week, we're doing something a little different. We're unpacking GC itself, which was in New York City last week, what actually happened in the room, what people are talking about, what it all means for operators moving forward. I'm joined by two of my favorite leaders who saw it from very different angles, Sam Rosen from Yardi and Kane Willmot, who is the co-CEO of IQ Offices. Let's get into it. Sam, how the hell are you?
I'm very good, Liz. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am good. Today is spa day. So as soon as I'm done with
Spa
this,
day,
I
big
am
day.
taking off. And Kane, how are you?
Awesome. Doing
Love
great.
it.
Recovering
Okay.
from last week.
Love it. Okay, well, let's get into it. You were
Yeah,
both
we're
at
in between
Juice.
your spa. We gotta go
I know we gotta
fast.
go. So you guys
100%.
were both at Juicy last week, which was our 50th, which was super fun. What stuck with you? What have you not stopped thinking about post Juicy?
One of my favorite talks was the club talk. It's just an idea that I've been like really into for a while now. And I thought that was a really interesting, unique conversation. I think in general there were a few conversations that were really cool because I've been to a lot of these juicies, and I feel like there were a few different folks at this juicy that were just from different industries or sort of tangential businesses, industries. And so the club stuff was really interesting, talking like really focused on community building, like thoughtful, curated groups that maybe
Mm-hmm.
aren't work centric necessarily, but seeing how you could apply that to the type of co-working communities that are central to the juicy folks. So I thought about that one a lot. I keep thinking about that one. It's cool.
Cool. What about you, Kane?
I mean, I love New York. It's such a great venue. It's such a great place to spend time with people because there's just such an energy in that city on top of the energy at the conference. So yeah, it was awesome. This is your second one, Liz, right? In New York?
Fifth.
Fifth? Oh my God. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
we've done
All
5 in
right.
New York.
Five? Holy cow. So
Yeah.
tell me what years. What years did you do New York? So I want to
Oh
understand where
gosh,
I was
I'm
there
not
and what
even
I
gonna
missed out on.
remember. I know we did 2 back to back. I think it was 2017, 2018, 2021, 2026, and somewhere there was another one in there. Yeah, I
Oh
can't
my
keep
God.
track
I
of
know I've
all of
been,
them anymore.
yeah, well, yeah. It's right 50, right?
Yeah,
50.
yeah,
So yeah. No, it was amazing. I expected it to be amazing. It definitely delivered. The venue was awesome. The venue was
yeah.
really
J
nice. I
Conference
hadn't been in
really
it.
hooked us up.
They really did. Yeah. Like I,
You
I was
know,
really impressed with that conference
and it was
center.
interesting, Judah said that J Conference is what got them through COVID.
Hmm.
Mhm,
That's
and
really interesting.
yeah, he said that that was what saved him. So, was there something specific post Juicy Cane that just keeps coming up for you that you keep thinking about?
Yes, a number of things. We always talk about AI, right? And AI is one of the big
Mhm,
things that is like it's front and center, and it's interesting because we are really having some interesting conversations at the conference in terms of with other people that are using it. All of the suppliers talking to Yardi about it, talking to
mhm,
different companies, how they're using it. So I think that's really interesting. Um, it's really, it's the conversations, the content's awesome, right? And I love getting to the content. And sometimes you have those things, those moments where you're like, oh, that's really interesting.
mhm,
And some of that was around, interestingly enough, this conference was around some of the conversations as well as
mhm,
as the content. Um, the uh the um content around, the branding. We talked like the
mhm.
branding that was
Yeah,
discussed
Coral.
and how like
Mhm,
companies bring Coral, like we had a little session with him, as well, which was amazing. Like the way that he dissected, the customer and your brand and how it ties the 2
mhm,
together, I thought was really interesting. So the AI piece is always there, front center. That was another
mhm,
piece though for me. It actually brought up a question which I hadn't thought of, which was, who we sell to. So we sell to enterprise. That's our primary focus. But we have 3 masters, right? We have the people on site, they are employees. We have the people that are decision makers, they're usually somewhere else, also
mhm,
employees, senior. Then we have brokers. We have these 3 people that we got to make happy. And I was always thinking about people on site and thinking about a better day at work, like what does really matters. And then I started thinking about someone who's an employee for, let's say, Amazon. Someone
Mhm.
who decides to go and work at Amazon may think differently than I do, right? Because I don't work at Amazon and I wouldn't go work at
Mhm.
Amazon. So when I wake up and what I think about every day may be very different than what an employee at Amazon wakes up and thinks about every day. And
Mhm.
then through that, thinking about if I'm the decision maker at Amazon, how do I know that IQ Offices, as an example, is going to do what I do for that employee to prioritize what it is that they want and need in a
Mhm.
workspace, right?
Yeah.
So I think everyone on these are all entrepreneurs. Like, all 3 of us are entrepreneurs. So for us, it's like get shit done, highly effective, want to be super productive, don't want to waste a minute, want to push things forward. And employees at big organizations don't think the way that we think. I think that's kind of an aha moment for me, right?
Mhm.
And like
Yeah.
what the 3 of us prioritize, we may find similarities in that, right? On how we
Mhm.
spend our days and what we think about. But we may find that that's very different than what an employee of a large organization thinks about when they wake up in the morning every day.
Totally.
And so
Totally.
that was an aha moment for me, right? In terms
I
of our
love it.
customer.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, as you guys both know, I worked really hard to try to make this juicy feel different. And by doing adjacent talks and less of us talking to us about us. And I'm curious, did it feel different this year? Did the conversation shift in a meaningful way? And it's interesting what you said, Kane, because I stress so hard and I spend so much time on these panels and the organization of the event. And, I got a lot of really great feedback about the CEO panel we did, which I had zero prep on. I just put the CEOs up and said, there's no prep. You guys just talk about whatever you want to talk about. And it was really highly rated. And I'm like, that's hilarious. Maybe I'm over engineering this. And, we purposely do a lot of breaks and a really long lunch because we want people to have an opportunity to have those hallway conversations. So I'm asking, like, did it feel different? And is there enough time for other connection at Juicy? I'm going to go to you first, Sam.
Yeah, I'm you put me on stage to talk to our buddy Chris Muller, which I thought was a very cool conversation. I'm biased,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, because I was part of it, and I know Chris and appreciate Chris a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
I know we made Angel cry multiple times, and I thought that was
That's
pretty cool.
success right there.
That's a huge success.
That's how, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought that was really quite interesting, and I was surprised at how engaged and sort of thought provoking that conversation was. And for those that
Mm-hmm.
weren't at the conference, Chris is, working on a project around sustainable housing for folks that are have a hard time finding thoughtful, stable, and equitable housing. And him talking about, I think, what's happening in our society and in our economy that drove him to start building really resonated with the folks in the room that were community builders. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that was, I love that. I think that's one of the reasons I love co-working so much in general is
Mm-hmm.
we have built these communities of these rooms. These rooms involve people who don't necessarily work on the same thing, work together, just they're working physically together. And it spurs these very interesting conversations. Oh, you're working
Mm-hmm.
on this industry or this profession, or you're using this technique that I've never heard of, and I probably
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have heard of it unless we were sitting in this room next to each other. So there's something that I really loved about this, and I hope, as you continue to program these in the future, like it creates sort of the conversations that I think it just are what makes co-working so wonderful to begin with. So I definitely felt that in this conference.
Did you feel like there was enough time to have those hallway conversations, or did it still feel rushed?
Definitely. It's interesting because I've been going to these for so long, and I think at the
Mhm.
beginning I voraciously like ate up all of the programming, and then
Mhm.
as I've been more of a sponsor in the background, I spend a lot more time in those hallways and in those meeting rooms having conversations. And I've definitely found over the last couple juicies, last two or
Mhm.
three, like like a call back to the programming and into the speaking, because
Mhm.
I thought it's been very good and well curated. But yeah, I think there's endless opportunities to meet, to grab a bite to eat, to grab
Yeah.
a beer,
Good.
to meet after work, and I think there's plenty of room for that.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Kane, what are your thoughts as far as did it feel different this year and did you get enough time for those hallway conversations?
The second part of the question, yes, I had a lot of time for the hallway conversation
Good.
stations, which I thought was awesome. It's really good, especially too, like when you're balancing. I don't know what it is, but everything the house seems to go on fire when I go to conferences. I don't know why. There's just something happens. Where it's
My
like now I need
space
all my
used to
attention to this.
flood. Every time I
Right.
left, my space would flood.
Yes. So there's something, it seems like every conference there's something going on, personal, professional, whatever it is, something that's like
Mhm.
needs my attention like right now. And I kind of like have to juggle that. Which I think, it's just life, right? And I think a lot of people
Mhm.
experience that as well. So having those breaks in between the content, I think is really good because the content is so
Mhm.
good and people don't want to miss out on it. So I think setting up that time is really important. The other thing was the round table, like the breakout sessions, the
Mhm.
round tables, the podcast
Mhm.
sessions, like really, really interesting because I think these are like Caleb does an amazing job with his podcasts. Getting an opportunity to see that live and in
Mhm.
person, I think is really cool. And I brought our CM, our community manager from
Mhm.
Montreal. Her name's Hannah, and it was her first time going to a conference. I've had the pleasure of bringing first time attendees to Juicy's in the past, and I can say like it's really great to be able to also experience it through their eyes. Like there's some content where I feel like, okay, I know a lot of kind of what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
Um, and then you bring someone who's never experienced it before, and they're like, oh wow, like this is entirely focused on what I do, and it's all and they're really kind of starting to bring the picture together of what it is that we do with co-working outside of just their like what it is that they do every single day, and they can start to understand how they are such an integral piece of what it is
Mhm.
that we do and what we offer. So I would say that this conference catered really well to like the old timers like me and then the new timers, like
Mhm.
the people that first get there. I saw a lot of new faces, and I think there's so much opportunity for people to be engaged throughout the entire time, right? So I think
Yeah,
you killed it.
one of the things that's really, really hard is we do have somebody who's gonna open one space in the hills of Kentucky to somebody that has 95 spaces. Like, it's just the whole gamut, right? So, it makes the
Mhm.
programming really hard, which is part of the reason we have simultaneous programming. It's also trying to trick you into bringing more people so that you can get more benefit by bringing more people and seeing more talks and then debriefing together afterwards. Because you can't see it all because you're only one person, and sometimes we have 3 things happening at once. So I'm
Yep.
crafty is what I'm saying.
I
Um,
know. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Kane, from an operator's perspective, what was the mood in the room? Are people optimistic? Are they cautious? Are they tired? Are they energized? What are you picking up?
That's interesting. I feel like there's optimism in the room now.
Mhm.
I would say at the like in 2023, let's say,
Mhm.
I could feel the fatigue in the
Yeah.
room, right? I could
Yeah.
feel it. And like a lot of people talking about exit, a lot of people talking
Mhm.
about, how to kind of get out of the business, right?
Mhm.
And those conversations have now shifted to how do I optimize my business?
Yeah.
Right? And so
Mhm.
I think there's been energy, energy in like injected into our industry. I think that, the market's coming back. That certainly helps, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but I also too think that during that time, the Juicies were a great opportunity for us to get together and kind of as a support group,
Yeah.
and cry and have some shoulders to cry on. And then, on the other side now, it's like a collective energy of like, wow, we got such an opportunity. The market's coming our way. Enterprise is using us more than ever. Landlords need us more than ever, even though they might not have woken up and understood that yet. That is going to come,
Yeah.
and I think there's so many opportunities. The future is very bright for our industry, and when you went through such a difficult time of COVID, it's easy to lose sight of that and be tired, right? And
Mhm.
and and I think that's where we were for a while, but I feel like there's been a shift, and it's great to go to these events because you feel it.
Yeah, and I also feel like COVID, like, we all survived it, so we have this survivor's bond. Like, we've been
Hmm.
through it, and we're on the other side of it, and I think that
Hmm.
that's something that I definitely feel. So Sam, you're in a lot of these hallway conversations and dinners. What are people talking about that isn't making it to stage or the sessions?
Huh. Well, I think there's just like a general maturing of the industry, and I see that in a lot of the conversations that I'm having, and
Mhm.
I think Kanan has something to do with what you're saying, where there's sustained confidence about growth, and then you're just seeing operators now that like have been in this for 5, 10, 15 years. So I think one of the most interesting things that I think's happening, and it's kind of validated, I think, by the conversations and some of the data that we're seeing as it relates to the industry, is just our industry is going to continue to grow over the next 5, 10, 15 years in a meaningful way. And I think there are a bunch of different reasons that we're going to see growth. AI is one of them. That's definitely going to
Mhm.
affect just how people use space and what is the right type of space, and where it's used. But I think you're seeing more traditional landlords and real estate operators that have some type of co-working maturing and thinking about this more seriously. And this is something I think
Mhm.
we've all been thinking about and talking about for a long time, but I think you're starting to see this. So you're starting to see big landlords get smart about their amenitized space and trying to
Mhm.
figure out what that is and how that relates to co-working and how that relates
Mhm.
to how they sell, and what technologies and tools that they use to power that. There are folks that I think for a long time have said, we have this flex co-working thing, and are starting to realize that, like, well, if this is something viable that's a real part of our business, that's going to be a big differentiator for us in the future, like, we have to take it more seriously. We have to make sure we have the right partners, the right tools, the right people, and the right tactics to be successful. But I just
Yeah,
see
and
that being bigger and more important in this
totally.
space.
Hey guys, just breaking in to let you know that we have an amazing event. If you would like to join us in the UK, we've got an event coming up in Manchester and one in London. You can get more details on that at uk.juicy.co and africa.juicy.co. We've got an event coming up in September in Cape Town that we're super excited about. We want to learn what's going on in Africa, and we want to pour everything we can into that continent. If you'd like to have a juicy ad or be a podcast guest or talk to us about sponsorship or anything else, just hit us up at info@gcuc.co. Talk to you soon. And a great indicator of that was CBRE buying Industrious, because CBRE bought Industrious to take the juice out of Industrious and apply it across CBRE globally.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when you see like one of the biggest, most sophisticated real estate companies making that move, it's definitely having sort of the ripple effects to all of,
Yeah.
to the industry at large. And when I say industry, I mean office, not just
Yeah.
co-working.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're taking it over. Okay, so Sam, you introduced a new co-working dashboard during your session at Juicy, which was awesome. I really loved seeing that. But Kane was unable to attend because he was in a different session.
Kane!
So
I know, so embarrassing. So embarrassing. Liz
busted.
called me and asked me that question. Totally, totally.
But then I was like, this is great because now, because you need to explain it to Kane, you're explaining it to a broader audience. So, what was this thing you launched, Sam? Tell us about it.
One of the coolest parts of joining Yardi through DeskPass over the last year has been how much data they have first party. That's very unique. That again, n- not a Yardi commercial. Just the reality is Yardi has 400 people that can do first party research as it relates to co-working
Right.
and
Nobody else
the
does.
the office underlying it. So one of the first things I learned in Yardi is we had this set of data that I thought was really interesting. As someone who's been an operator, both running spaces and a marketplace, I was like, man, this is gold. I think our the folks at Juicy and kind of our cohort of folks would love to get their hands on this data. So the team at Yardi and I built this thing called the Coworking Index, which is available at coworkingcafe.com/index. And what we're able to do, this is for the United States to start, but it's something that we're hoping to launch more broadly. It's tracking the number of locations, the amount of square feet related to those locations, and then also understands the office market, the denominator underneath it. So this coveted, like, we're going to be at 30% by 2030 percentage. We've built an index that we think actually does a pretty good job of tracking that number, both nationally, but by city or slash market and by state. And it just is very cool tool that I was very excited that had the opportunity to share more broadly. It's completely free. It's it's it's
Is
it's
Canada
alive.
included?
Canada's not
Eh,
included yet, but Canada will be included sooner than later. It's a hard thing with the data is the denominator, right? So tracking the number of co-working spaces is less hard. Trying to understand their square feet, square meters is more difficult. And then knowing, oh, they're in this building and this is how big that building is a like tremendous amount of work and effort. So we're starting with the United States because we have the data, but hopefully get to grow it soon.
Yeah, it was really a fun session because Mark Gilbreth was in it, Ben was in it, Craig was in it. I, of course, couldn't shut up. So there was like really good conversation also happening with the crowd.
Yeah.
And I think, what I'm so excited about is since Steve King exited with providing us an estimate of number of spaces many years ago, we really haven't had a place to consistently go for the data, right? And so to me, this is a really exciting thing for the industry. And I'm totally pumped about it. Kane, from an operator's perspective, did you see this as something that might be useful for you as a tool?
Yeah, I had the benefit of of speaking with Will about this.
Mm,
So I got a
mm-hmm.
preview. I got a preview of Sam what you presented. So that was I got that a little bit ahead of the conference. I got a little bit of sneak peek, so I knew what was going on. But yeah, no, I think it's amazing. And you were talking about CBRE, Sam, and yeah, see that acquisition obviously is amazing and speaks to the value that that the big providers of office and serviced office are thinking about. But if you look at, Yardi, such a massive organization with deep roots in institutional real estate, and data now being so prevalent in our industry, I think that might be the bigger move, if you look at what can happen with our industry. I think the biggest challenge I've always said with our industry is awareness. One word, I would say, like, if you say, like, what would solve a lot in our industry, it's awareness. It's
Mm-hmm.
awareness from the customer,
Mm-hmm.
it's awareness from the landlords, it's awareness from the other operators within the market. Like, it's very
Investors.
investors, yeah, like all the stakeholders that are around the ecosystem of co-working are kind of shut out. And it's difficult because it's such a collaborative industry, but information is not readily available. And so when you talk to investors, they're like, "Oh, we work crashed, and that's it's a terrible business model. It doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
right?" And then you talk to bankers, they have that same sort of impression. You talk to real estate owners, and they so like there isn't good information. And if you look at hotels as the example, there's such good information. right? Where they can
Yeah.
sit down with a developer and say, hey, here's the star report. Here is what the occupancy is. Here is what we can make some adjustments for this market, yada yada. And we've got great information, and everybody can see it, and you have confidence. And the challenge is that we just don't have that. The workspace industry, the co-working industry, is so fragmented,
Mhm.
right? I think I heard that stat when we were at the conference. Something like
Mhm.
IWG represents less than 10%, right? We work in industrious, like less than 5.
Mhm.
Like I think the
Mhm.
big players, ServCorp included, are less than 15% of the entire
Yeah.
offering in the industry, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
and that's
and
the
then
stat from Yardi that we're constantly using, which is in the US, 50% is boutique operators.
Right. Yeah. So you don't get
Huge.
access to that information. Yeah. And then so if you have Yardi that's putting that information together, you have other big operators as well, like Liquid Space that has access to data. I think AI is going to be something that's going to give people ready access to this information because the information's there. And you
Yeah.
have Yardi that has a willingness and an openness and an intention of sharing that information to elevate the industry, which is I think
Well,
that's
plus
huge.
the other thing I really liked is how Yardi was defining the industry because it's not so much around the nomenclature, it's more around the size. Did I explain that well, Sam?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that uh, being at this conference for a very long time and how the definition of co-working and what it's meant has evolved
Mhm.
over time from, I wonder how many people in the room have been to sort of coworking.com and coworking.org and read
Mhm.
the kind of initial core values related
Mhm.
to co-working. And I think like what has manifested and been created is much bigger than that original kind of
Yeah.
cohort of types of spaces. So how we define it, what we define it as, what
Mhm.
type of space is included and isn't included is an important thing. And I think what the perspective, at least from the index, is to have a capital C perspective on co-working and know that like it means a lot of different things. It means a lot of different operators, a lot of different sizes, a lot of different players, but just trying to and normalize it in a way that we can talk about it, report it, and learn from that
Yeah.
data to create better outcomes for everybody.
Yeah. So, one of the things we talked about is kind of like what really stuck it with you, really made you think. On the flip side, was there anything that felt overplayed or disconnected from reality?
Huh.
Hmm.
I don't know if I felt like an overarching, like I've heard this all before. I think the thing you said this before, I guess both of you did. One of the things that just blows my mind is like you have people like Kane and I who have been to this conference so many times in
Mhm.
different countries, and then you have these brand new operators who
Yeah.
have from the first time. And I just like that's something that never really gets old to me. I think it's a
Mhm.
challenging problem to program because how do
Yeah.
you what's really interesting to somebody might be feel fairly elementary to
Mhm.
like somebody who's been doing this for a while.
Mhm.
Um for me, I felt like I've gotten pretty good at picking the programming and picking the event
Mhm.
the events and the rooms that I want to be in to learn. So I didn't feel like there was something I kept hearing over and over again where I was like,
Mhm.
"Shut up about this."
Yeah,
But I think part of it is just because I curated the room to be
yeah,
in that
and
like where that wouldn't happen, and that's the beauty
again,
of the
by
format.
design, right? And
Yeah.
then I think the other thing is, we used to do Camp Juicy, which was just for the newcomers, but post COVID, it didn't make sense because people weren't opening co-working spaces. So could we
Mm.
potentially bring Camp Juicy back for the newcomers? Yes, but we won't do it until we can sell, more than 50 tickets at it. The other thing that we do that works really, really well for us that I love that is something that we instituted quite a few years ago is our scholarship program. That's where we really are looking for people who can't afford to go, who've never been, who might be a minority who needs to be in the room. And we really use that to help make sure that the room is well rounded. Because although, my stance on diversity is that we don't talk about it, you just do it. And that's how we handle that. Kane, what about you? Anything that felt overplayed or disconnected?
No, I didn't really sense that. Like
Okay.
sometimes, in the past I could say that there was like some things that might have come to mind, not on this one.
Mhm.
But I got a
Oh,
question for you,
goody.
Liz.
Oh,
Yeah.
goody.
So my first Juicy that I went to, I think it was either 2012 or 2013. It was in
Wow.
LA. It was in the Steelcase space,
That was 2014.
downtown. 2014. Okay, all right. So okay. And I think I might have even been to most of those New York ones, thinking back. So
Mhm.
I got a really good memory. It's just short. So uh in terms of like early days, I look at my impression of 2014 to
Mhm.
today. I'm
Mhm.
curious for you for 50,
Yeah.
like 50 conferences, what's changed? What do you see different now than
Hmm.
you saw then? Like what has been the evolution of Juicy conferences?
Very interesting. So we've always evolved. Like that's a really great thing about I don't have a board I answer to. I don't collaborate a whole bunch. I just kind of make the decisions and go. So like we've ebbed and flowed on camp. We've done a lot of different versions of camp. Juicy, quite honestly, got too big to do an unconference. And that's when we switched to the roundtables because everybody was saying, we need an expert at the table. Well, now we have an expert at the table. And that was something I stole from Emily in GCUK. She started doing that. And I'm like, oh my God, brilliant. I'm taking that. And so I think that we used to so we licensed Juicy in Australia, Canada, and China, also in Taiwan and Brazil. And licensing is starting to come back, so that's exciting. We've been doing UK for quite a while. We just added on Africa. And, we're also talking to other parts of the world about licensing Juicy. So that's exciting to see that kind of coming back. I mean, that's a lot of how we got to Juicy, because there were so many in China. Um, and I love that global perspective that Juicy brings. But yeah, we've ebbed and flowed a ton. We've always kind of kept it to 2 days and tours, and we think that works really well. We've tried tours in the beginning, we've tried tours in the end. We've tried different days of the week. We have tested and tried so many things, but I think we've landed on what works right now, but we're open to it always open to it shifting and changing. But also, part of the reason I really wanted to focus on more adjacent people to co-working is those are always the highest rated talks. And so it's bringing in a fresh, different perspective that I think really helps people next level, whether you're opening one or you have 200. It doesn't matter. You can learn from Chris Moeller. And that's
Mm.
where I think we're starting to see a little bit of this really worked well, and I think we're gonna continue down that road. Because here's the other thing I would love. I think this is the first Juicy where you and we had a couple of these people who'd never been to a Juicy. One was a designer, another one was somebody who runs a fund, and they were like, "I loved every second of it," and they're not in co-working. So the fact that somebody that isn't in co-working could come to Juicy and get a hell of a lot out of it, I think is really cool. Because we have been very co-working flex. This is our audience. What if our audience is bigger than that? What are if our audience is any community builder? What are if our audience is anybody that's interested in helping change mental health? I think that we could maybe grow not so much as the co-working conference, but maybe we grow as the conference that cares about community and mental health.
I totally agree, man. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think I love that club talk so much was it was
Mhm.
people who are building something very similar and maybe not the exact same thing. But to your other point, the other thing is the international nature of the conference, I think
Oh,
is
so
so
cool.
rad. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, A, it's just a great opportunity to see colleagues in Australia and the UK and other parts of the world that you don't
Yeah,
get.
the guys that came from Argentina, they are ballers.
Dude,
The hit
all
guys, they know their
yeah,
Mhm.
shit, and I'm like, "You guys don't know
Mhm.
them. Oh my gosh, we gotta bring them to stage. Look at them."
totally. And I think, I mean,
Mhm.
part of one of the things that was part of that index talk was a great model for the US is what's happening in London. You know what I mean? And in
Mhm.
that room, you had a bunch of people from the UK being like,
Tons.
"Hey, that's nice to hear. Also, yeah, you're probably right. Also, we have a lot to share. We've been doing this for a
Yeah,
long time." So, like,
yeah.
that is just something that I think makes this conference so special. Is
Mhm.
irrespective of where it is in the United States, like the
Yeah.
US one, like you really do get people who come
Oh,
every
yeah.
year, and it's a big part of their ongoing education.
Oh
And
my gosh,
there's
Talk's been
so
coming
much to
from
learn.
Japan
It's
for like
amazing.
12 years.
Yeah,
He comes every single
amazing.
juicy.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. I love that. All right, Kane, one thing that you're actually taking back to your team or business from Juicy and acting on.
Oh, that's great. I'd go back to my previous comment about understanding the customer. We're doing
Mm.
some more research on that, trying to find the similarities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of our, because I feel like going into the conference, like we made some in the last couple of years, we've made some really huge steps forward in understanding who our customer is um, in terms of it being enterprise
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of companies that we cater to, but
Mm-hmm.
the next step down of the similarities between the people on site, right? The
Well, and
similarities
then
between the decision makers.
also what Coral pointed out, which is the community in Toronto has very different interests than the community in Vancouver. Like, how do you drill
Yes.
down into the neighborhood and make sure you're providing the right events?
It's so true. I mean, and like the programming, the service offering, the value proposition can be very different in different markets. And if you
Mhm.
look at we're in 4 markets. We're in Toronto, Vancouver, Ottawa, Montreal. I can tell you that the 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 way that people think in those markets is very different. It really is. I
Mhm.
mean, we have a language difference in Quebec and Montreal, but Toronto works at a very different speed than Vancouver does, as an example,
Mhm.
right? And so, what
Yeah.
they're looking for, what is important is, to your point, it's not only just across the spectrum of the entire portfolio, looking at the similarities in customers. It's also looking at the similarities in customers within each one individual market. And I think
Yeah.
that's the challenge and opportunity of going to new markets,
Yeah. For
right?
sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And Sam, when your talk was really great, and one of the things that you kept saying is like, "This is just the beginning, guys. There's so much more coming." So tell us more around what's coming besides the obvious, which is going to Canada, going global with us. What are some of the things that you're excited about for this dashboard?
I think like the 4 big takeaways are trying to get through the dashboard. Please go look at it if you want.
Oh yeah, what's the
The
URL?
It's
We'll also put it in the show notes.
coworkingcafe.com/index. But the point is also like it's the beginning. It's the beginning of a
Yeah.
conversation. It's the beginning of a platform. So hopefully it's a useful tool that we can learn. We've already gotten some feedback that we're looking at and working on. But the 4 big takeaways were, there's this JLL 30% by 2030 number. And today in the US, we're at 2.3. We're not even close to that number. And the
Mhm.
argument that Peter and I, offered to the room was maybe 13% is the best target. And that's closer to where London is and the UK is. That there's a model out there that forget 30%. If we were to get from 2.3 to 13%, you're 5xing the size of the market. How do we do that? What does that mean? Well, I think a big part of getting from here to there is these landlords directly entering the game, as you see in UK, like in London, you see landlords that have built, developed, and execute their own brands. They might
Mhm.
consult with other partners, they might hire consultants, but they're building their own brands in house. You're already seeing that in the US. If you look at the 10 biggest operators in the US, Studio by Tishman is one of them, and
Mhm.
Workstyle by Boxer
Mhm.
Properties is the other one. So 2 out of the 10 biggest operators in the US are already landlords with their own brands, and I think, like, we're gonna see a lot more of that. And what does that mean for us as operators, as service providers, as like, there's so much opportunity and upside. Um, and last is, like, what is AI and sort of all these new technologies that are coming available, like smart locks and sensors and IoT based devices that allow us to create better experiences that are more autonomous and more available to the everyday operator. And I think those were the 4 big things that were like we'll be seeing in the future that I think will affect this industry and this game we're playing.
Love it. Okay, last question. If Juicy is a snapshot of where the industry is, what needs to happen between now and next year to push the industry forward? I know it's a tough one.
I would say investment. You go ahead, Sam.
No, that's a great answer.
Okay, I'd say investment is the biggest thing. Like their construction costs have gone through the roof, which is creating a challenge in the market in terms
Yeah.
of new supply. So, so that's challenging. I think the educational piece is missing, and that's why I'm so excited about what Sam's doing, because I think there's an opportunity for some of the landlords to get, and some of the stakeholders, not only landlords, it's the people that are investing, it's the investors in the real estate, it's the the financiers as well,
Mhm.
all looking at this and saying this is something that we want, and then making the investment. Because I can say too that like show suites, we call them show suites, spec suites, the landlords building
Mhm.
these small units that are just pre-built suites. They're building these things fairly cheaply, like still like maybe 60% of the cost of what it costs to
Mhm.
build a co-working space. So there's still a real there's a the investment piece is a real hurdle, and it's pulling landlords into like this kind of like toe dip sort of thing, with the exception of the big players like Tishman Speyer, where they're just like, I'll just build out a show suite because it's going to cost me $150 a foot or $120 a foot, not 200 and change. And because of that, that's creating more like fragmented product, right?
Yeah.
And it can, and I think it's going to create this like antiquated product over time, of all these suites that don't really work, that need more investment. They're not the quality, and they don't have the agility that a co-working space does. So I think more investment would be the biggest thing as far as the takeaway and what's stopping us from growing.
Agreed. Sam?
I think my answer is always sort of the same about this, but if we're at 2.3% and our goal is, let's say, 13, not 30, we're still at the very beginning. One of the
Yep.
things, 15 years later, one of the things that I love about our business and I love about the room in Juicy is it is a share, make the pie bigger,
Yep.
and thus your slice will grow. And I think we need to continue to do this. We need to continue to share tactics that work and uh, what is effective, because as we discussed, like what works in Toronto might not work in Montreal, might not work
Right.
in Boise. What we can continue to do and have to continue to do to grow is share what works, why it's
Said
working and where it's working for each of us,
yep.
so we can.
Well, and that's part of the reason I do Juicy is to make sure people know that they're collaborators and not competitors, to keep the community alive, to keep people focusing on mental health. Like that's part of the reason I do it is because if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it. So we've just got to do it ourselves. And I think like co-working is such a unique industry, and I think I've mentioned this a few times before, not in this podcast, but like it's sort of like a no jackass zone because the people that are in co-working like literally care about humans and want to make the world a better place. And if you don't care about humans, you don't want to make the world a better place, Juicy's not your place. And that's okay.
Mhm.
All right, my friends, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. This was a really strong one. What stands out for me is that Juicy isn't about what's on stage, it's about what's happening underneath it, the real conversations, the real challenges, and the real opportunities. Sam and Kane, I super appreciate you guys. I super appreciate how many times you've come to Juicy and invested in this community. It means the world to me. And anyone listening, if you were at Juicy, hopefully this gives you a new lens on what you experienced, and if you weren't there, this is what just a tidbit of what you missed, because you gotta invest in being in the room to get all the juicy goodness. Share this with somebody in the industry that should be part of the conversation. We'll see you at the next Juicy podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more juicy content. Join the Juicy community so you can be connected 24/7, 365. And join us in the UK or Africa this year. We've got a lot more content coming your way. Thanks for listening.
Enjoy your well-deserved spa day, Liz.
I am out of
Absolutely.
here.